Here's what happens when car dealers can't sell cars. My dad sold cars for 43 years. He's going to break it down. Here's the deal, Dad. Back at caredge.com/shop, we track how long vehicles have been listed for sale from dealerships. Here's an example of a Colorado for sale for 91 days. I've got another example here of a Chevy Traverse for 170 days, and another example here of a Colorado for 218 days. What happens when car dealers can't sell cars, and why is it a bad thing that these vehicles have been sitting for so long?
Well, it's a bad thing because the dealership does not pay cash for their inventory. They actually arrange a line of credit. It's called floor planning, and they have a line of credit from the bank. And as the invoice comes in, the bank pays for the vehicle, and then they start charging the dealership interest on that vehicle until the dealership sells it and pays it off. So typically, most vehicles today, the floor plan cost or interest costs associated with the car run between $300 to $500 per month per vehicle. The sweet spot for dealers to sell a car is within 60 days. At 60 days, the manufacturer might cover the cost of floor plan interest for 1 month. The second month falls on the dealership. Anything beyond that continues to fall on the dealership. So the dealership's expense in that car keeps going up. They hate that.
You mentioned a couple things in there. Invoice. So when you said the invoice goes to the bank, that's the dealer invoice. That's like the manufacturer selling the car to the dealership, correct?
That is correct. So the manufacturer ships the car and sends the invoice to the dealer. The dealer's bank automatically gets a copy of that invoice, and they pay the manufacturer for the vehicle at that time.
So let's use this real example. It's a 2025 Chevrolet Colorado Z71. It has a $55,000 MSRP and a dealer invoice cost out of $52,479. This dealership has had this vehicle on their website listed for sale for 218 days. So you said a few other things in there as well, which is like the manufacturer might help with floor plan assistance and things like that. But this dealership is spending money every single day and every single month to let this vehicle sit there. And they're probably at 218 days, well outside the window of the manufacturer giving them support financially to help offset that cost.
Oh, absolutely. With the manufacturer might cover 15 days, 30 days, some cases 45 days. But let's just use 30 days. So if that vehicle's been sitting on the dealer's lot for 218 days, that would mean 30 days, that would be what, 188 days? So that's 6 months where the dealer is paying. And let's just say for fun that it's about $400 a month on that Colorado. 4 times 6, that's $2,400 in finance charges that they've had to pay to the bank to carry that Colorado on their lot for those 218 days. Do you think the dealer wants to spend another $400 for another month? I know for a fact they don't.
So this is where some of the negotiation leverage can come in. The longer a vehicle has been sitting, the more likely the dealership is to actually sell you that vehicle at a discount because they just want to get it off their lot and replace it with something fresh, because then obviously they have the floor plan assistance from the manufacturer and they have at least those 30 days to try and sell it and not have this monthly expense. We see this at a micro level, Dad. We also see it at a macro level. This is the time on lot for different brands and manufacturers. And we've seen some brands, for example, Ford has their vehicles sitting on the lot longer than some of the other brands like Toyota, for example. And we're also seeing this right now. There are still 2024 new vehicles for sale nationwide. Those have been sitting for a long time, costing dealerships thousands upon thousands of dollars. So this is like truly what happens when cars don't sell. They cost the dealership money.
Oh, absolutely. And as the customer, it's incumbent upon you to look through their inventory, especially on our website. You can look through their inventory on our website and you can see how many days each vehicle has been at the dealership. And if you're interested in a Colorado and there's 2 Colorados that are acceptable to you and basically exactly the same, and one's been there for 15 days and one's been there for 218 days, my suggestion to you would be look at the one that's been there for 218 days. The reason for that is the dealer is going to be extremely motivated to make that vehicle disappear, much more motivated than they would on the one that's been there for 15 days. They want to get that 218-day-old vehicle off the books. They want to stop paying the bank the interest on that. When you're looking for vehicles and you know there's more than one that would be acceptable to you, always ask the salesperson which one is the oldest one in inventory. Because I understand that the longer the vehicle's been sitting here, the greater your expenses are because you're paying interest on that. I'm sure your sales manager would be more motivated in selling the older one than the younger one.
So let's talk about exactly that, Dad. What gets measured gets managed. One of the things that gets measured in dealerships is turn rate. So I want you to talk a little bit about that. That's added pressure for the sales manager and general manager to want to turn over their inventory. By turnover, I mean sell it quickly. The other, Dad, would be the incentives. You ran dealerships for 4+ decades. How would you incentivize your salespeople to try and get customers to buy older vehicles instead of newer ones? So the first question or the first thought is around inventory turnover and that measurement and making sure that that's, in a good place for the dealership, adding pressure here. And then spiffs or incentives to your salespeople to try and make sure that they are selling the older vehicles instead of the newer ones.
Yeah, as a manager, you're tasked with managing your inventory. That's the key. You want to be looking at your inventory on a daily basis, see which vehicles are starting to age. And as they start to age, you want to start putting sales bonuses on them to get your salespeople to sell and show those vehicles first as opposed to the younger ones. I remember when I was running the Acura dealership in Scottsdale, what we would do is I would pay a higher commission on the older the vehicle. So if someone had a customer that was looking for a white TL with tan or parchment interior, the salesperson usually would say to me, how many of those do we have and which one's the oldest one in inventory? And the reason they would do that is they knew the commission they were going to get if they sold the oldest one in inventory was greater than if they sold the youngest one in inventory. So that's one way to manage your inventory. Make everybody aware of the fact that you don't want vehicles to age, and it suddenly becomes everybody's interest, not just the sales manager's interest. And then there have been times where a vehicle has sat and sat and sat. The spiff might end up being, or the bonus might be, hey, at whatever price we sell that for, you're guaranteed $1,000 minimum commission. That usually gets somebody's attention. And typically, if you get the salesperson's attention with that $1,000, it usually gets the customer's attention because the salesperson is extremely motivated to make that vehicle go away.
So my dad mentioned it before back at caredge.com/shop. We built the functionality so you can actually sort and filter by days on market. Now, there is some gamesmanship that dealerships, especially dealer groups, do at this. They'll move inventory from one dealership to another dealership, trying to reset the clock. So you have to be a little bit careful here, but knowing how long a vehicle has been sitting on a dealer's lot is incredibly valuable information to inform your negotiation strategy and to identify if you have leverage or don't have leverage in a negotiation.
If you're looking at the older vehicle, the longer something's been sitting, the greater the likelihood that something could go wrong. And what do I mean by that? If a vehicle's been sitting for 218 days, chances are it doesn't get moved around a lot. So if it's sitting in the same spot for a longer period of time, you can get flat spots in the tires. So you need to test drive the vehicle aggressively to make sure that there are no flat spots in the tires. Oftentimes, vehicles that sit attract rodents and other vermin, and so you need to make sure there's no issues there. And well, there's always a draw on the battery, so you want to make sure that you have a fresh battery in the vehicle, or you get a report as to the battery's health. And these are things that the dealership is aware of, and they will take care of in order to move that vehicle.